Hey guys, sorry for the long wait. Here is episode 2 of the minigame series. We're going to focus on spawning players into the maps as well as giving them the tools that they need. So we're going to start right where we left off on episode 1. If you haven't seen it or need a refresher, I highly recommend you watch it. I'll have it in the description down below. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this uncopy locked place I gave you guys. So I found that the easiest, most straightforward way to do spawning is to use, the regular Roblox spawns as well as team integration. So, if you look to your Explorer right here, we don't have teams, so we're going to go ahead and go to Model. We're going to insert Service, and we're going to insert Teams. So now that we've got teams there, we're going to make our spectator team. So go ahead and insert a team. I'm going to name it Spectators, and I'm going to set the color to be medium stone gray because this will essentially be our default team that players will be placed into. And so we've got our spawn location here. It should correspond to the same color, but go ahead and uncheck neutral. None of our spawns should be neutral. If you have it as neutral, then it's gonna mess some things up. So go ahead and make sure you have that. Okay. And so, just as a recap, here's what we have from episode 1, right? We've got, inside of our service storage, we've got maps. We've got a couple maps in here, and right now it should cycle through each of those maps. In our replicated storage, we have a toAnnounce value. Whenever it's updated, the text label within the announce GUI that we made will update, and so it essentially creates an announcement whenever we update this value. So, now what we need is we're going to make a couple teams. I'm going to make at least 2. So I'm going to name this one Team 1. And you can decide on the team color, just be consistent. I'm going to choose deep orange for this one. And then for Team 2, I'm going to make it maroon. Okay, so now that we have our team set up, we need spawns within our maps. So I'm going to start with our free-for-all map. If you cut and paste it into the workspace, so Control X, Control V, then it's gonna be like in a position that you might not have placed it in. So I'm gonna undo that real quick, and I'm going to take the origin position of that model while it's still in the service storage. I'm gonna just copy that into my command bar just to have some place to store it, and then I'm going to cut and paste it back in. Now that's okay. I'm going to copy that origin position that I copied earlier and then paste it back in, so now it's where I expect it to be. Now, I need spawn locations within this map, and so I'm just going to go ahead and copy the spawn location right here, and then make sure it's inside of that map. Now, we don't want the spectator spawn to be here, we want team 1. So we're gonna set the team color to be deep orange. Might as well set the break color so it's matching. And then, so now we have a spawn here for team 1. Now, it's fine to have it just there. You don't have to put it in a specific hierarchy, but it's a good idea to just keep things organized because I don't know how many parts you guys will have in your maps, but it's a good idea, right? We're gonna have a folder for our spawns. We're just gonna put that in there. And now we've got a map with a single spawn location. So I'm going to paste that back into our maps. And because we don't have spawns for the other maps right now, I'm just going to take that out of that maps folder. And now we can delve into our game module script. So as a recap, this script, this main one, essentially handles the map changing. Now, when a map is randomly chosen, we're using the game module, and we use the run function, and we pass in the place or the map that was chosen. So if we trace that and go over to the game module, we'll see that it's passed in here. And all we do right now, it's just printing the place or the name of the place, right? And so that's great. But what we want is to store the functions that we need for each of those maps. So for each of our maps, for each of our games, we want specific code to run, right? And though we could do something like, local function, play free for all game and then do something like if the place name is free for all, then run this function, right? We could do that, but if you think about it, it's not great for scale. If you had 20 minigames, you'd have 20 of these things, and they'd fill up the screen, and you have to collapse all folds and then scroll all the way down to adjust this run function. And so it's not great. So what would be a better idea is that I was thinking we could make a dictionary. And why a dictionary? Well, a dictionary is pretty much going to be our, we're gonna have a toy box to put all of our toys in. And so I'm gonna name this dictionary our game sequences. And so with the dictionary, we're going to open it up with these curly braces, and for a key, which we wrap in this square bracket, it's going to be the name of our map. So if I was going to make a game sequence for a free-for-all map, it'll be free-for-all with the same exact capitalization. And then we're going to set the value to be a function, and in order to do that, we just do function, open and closing parentheses, and then if you press enter at the end, it'll add the end for you. And so this function is an anonymous function. It does not have a name, but because it's, tied to this key, we know exactly what this function is for. So now is the perfect time to ask, what do we want to do for each of these game sequences? What do you want to do for free-for-all specifically? So for free-for-all, we want to send the players to the game, spawn them in essentially, give them the tools that they need, and then send them back to the lobby. Now, will those functions that I just mentioned be specific to free-for-all? Like, is it only going to happen for that minigame? Well, likely no. And so I'm going to make another dictionary. I know I'm going kind of crazy with these, but they're pretty great in my opinion. And I'm going to name this dictionary shared functions. So these are functions that are shared between minigames. That doesn't mean each minigame has them, it just means that they can have them. And so recall those functions that I mentioned earlier. So one of them would be to send players to the game, so sendPlayersToGame. And again, we're setting the value to be a function, just like that. Another function we'd need is sendPlayersToLobby, so bringing them back after the game ends. And then another one is to giveTools. Alright, let's start with our first function. We've got sendPlayersToGame, and now we have no parameters right now. Nothing's being passed in, but we do want one thing, and it's going to be num of teams. This is so it can help us distribute players into teams easily, and so we've got that there. Now we need our player list, so we need to know how many players there are and who they are. So local player list equals, and we're going to use a players service, so I'm going to create a variable up top like this, local players, and I'm doing it in all caps so we know it's a service, game::get service players. Okay, so the value of player list will be players::get players. It's like get children, but we're going to get, children of the player class, and then we're going to set a variable local team index equals 1. And now that may not make a lot of sense right now, but this is what helps us distribute players into teams evenly. And so we're going to do a for loop here. We're going to go through each of the players, so for underscore comma player and pairs player list do. And this is a for loop structure. If you're not familiar with it, it's usually like k v like that, and it's usually used with dictionaries, but you can use it with arrays too. And this is essentially each child in that array. I'm more than happy to go deeper into for loops and things like that in a separate video. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a time crunch, but okay. So for each of our players, we're going to set the team of it to be a specific team. Now, okay, we're gonna need the team service, so I'm going to just make another variable up top in all caps, game::get service teams. Now we could hard code it, like set it to be teams.team1. Now that wouldn't make our function very useful because we want it to distribute players, right? And so rather than hard coding it like that, we're going to use square brackets right here. And we know that each team starts with the word team, so we'll write in team right there. We're going to do ... to concatenate that together, and then it'll be team index right here. So if we're going through that loop for the first time, it'll essentially set it equal to team 1, right? And so that's pretty cool. And now we're going to check if team index is equal to the number of teams. In English, that's like, if this is the last team that you want to have, then we're going to set the team index back to 1. Otherwise, we're going to increment the team index using team index plus equals 1. That's essentially the same as team index equals team index plus 1. Now that we've set the team of the player, we can expect that they'll spawn on the map when they are reloaded. So before that for loop ends, we're going to use a spawn function like this. Spawn, open parentheses, function, open and close parentheses, and then enter right before that last parentheses. And this will essentially help us load characters at the same time. This function, player :load character, it actually takes some time. And so if we were going to not put it inside of a spawn function, then it's going to take a bit of time to load everyone because it's waiting after each player. So this is good for us. Now that we spawn players back in, we're going to return something at the end of this function. And we're going to do that to keep track of which players were actually placed in the game. This will help us with figuring out who's the winner later on. And so right before that function ends, we're going to return player list. Alright, on to the next function, sendPlayersToLobby. So we'll actually need a parameter here as well. We're going to need the players that we want to send to the lobby. And we're going to go through each of those players, similar to earlier, for player in pairs players do. We're just going to set their team. So player.team equals teams.spectators. After we've set their team, we can also do the same thing and use that spawn function and load their character. Now, as you can see, I copied and pasted that. Depending on how many times you do this, you might want to make another dictionary up top, something like, you know what? I'll do that right now. So, local helper functions. So these are functions that are shared between the shared functions, and I'm just going to make this one, call it respawn player. And then it'll be set equal to a function. Our parameter will be the player, and then we'll just copy and paste that spawn. Take this out of there, and yeah, so in order to call that there, we do helper functions respawn player, and then remember the parentheses is on the outside of those square brackets, and then we'll pass in the player itself. So now we use that function, that same exact function, and we don't redeclare it. So yeah. After we've done that, that's actually the end of this function. That was quick. Next up is to give tools. For this function, we also need players as well as the tools that we want to give in the parameters. So we're going to go through each of the players again. And then for each player, we're going to go through each of those tools. So for tool in pairs tools do, and then we're going to clone that tool. So local clone equals tool : clone. And then we're going to set the parent of that clone tool to be the player's backpack. So clone.parent equals player.backpack. I'm going to go ahead and take out some of these extra spaces I added in, so the code is a little more together. Okay, so we have our 3 shared functions now. We've even got a helper function, and now we can start with our game sequence. So for our free-for-all, we're going to want to send all players to the spawn. So we're going to do shared functions send players to game. That's what our function is called, and the parameter that we pass in is the number of teams. And I'm gonna say we can put them all on the same team and just have multiple spawns for that team, so we can space them out a bit. So we've got that, and remember that we're actually returning the player list here, so we can set a variable, local players in game, and set it equal to that function because it returns that list. Now, it usually takes a little bit of time, so I'm going to do a wait, but not just any wait. I'm going to do a task.wait, the improved version of wait, and I'm going to have it wait 3 seconds. Now, after that, I will have it give tools to the players. So we do shared functions, give tools, and our parameters there were players and tools. So we can just pass in players in game, which is an array, and then we can pass in an array of tools. Now, we currently don't have tools. I'm actually super sad that most of the tools in the catalog, or the gear in the catalog, most of it is no longer functional. Or maybe I'm just not checking the right place, but that's what I've noticed. And it's sad because it would have sped up this entire minigame process if we had tools to work with. But it's okay. We can use a handy dandy sword. Just the classic sword. If you have tools of your own, feel free to use that. But I'm going to make a folder in the server storage and name it tools. This is where I'll put all my tools in. So now that I have that folder in there, I can make a variable for the folder, and I'll name it tools folder. Tools folder equals game get service server storage dot tools. Okay. And then I'm going to pass in within this array. I'm going to do tools folder dot sword. Okay, so now that it should give that tool to each of those players in the game, and then I'm going to do another wait just to give myself a little time to test out that tool, and then we can send players back to the lobby. So shared functions send players to lobby, and then we're going to pass in players in game. Alright, we should be all set for our game sequence for the free-for-all. Now in the run function, we have to make sure that it's hooked up. So we're going to do game sequences, and remember the key is the place name, so place.name. And then we're just going to do these parentheses. Before we test, let's go ahead and make another game sequence, and in this case we can choose Team Deathmatch. So just change the key to be that name of the map. And then in this case, for the Team Deathmatch, I think it makes sense to have 2 teams. Keep in mind, if you set it to something like 5, you do need to set up your teams right here and make sure there's enough teams in your team's service. And then, rather than a sword, I actually want to use a different tool for this, and I've got a hyper laser gun handy, so I'm going to paste that into the tools folder. If you need any of this stuff, I'll have the place file in the description. Okay, so we're going to do hyper laser gun in here instead. And, okay, so we have a new game sequence set up. All we have to do now is make sure that we have a spawn within that map. So I'm going to take Team Deathmatch, I'm going to copy its origin position and paste it again into my command bar for easy access. And then I'm going to cut and paste it into the workspace and make sure that its origin position is the same, just like that. Okay, so there's nothing on this currently. I'm going to go grab a spawn from the previous map, paste it in, and make sure that the colors, okay, so we're gonna have a team 1 here, but I also want a team 2. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace this, but change the color as well. I believe the other team was maroon, so I'm gonna change the team color of it. And I think that's about it. I can go ahead and cut and paste it back into the maps folder. Now, remember though, if you have King of the Hill and other maps that you don't have sequences for, it's going to error. So if you don't have a sequence set up yet, make sure it's not in the maps folder. Okay, I think I'm ready to test. If you're testing it using play, you need to make sure that in the script, you have minimum players to be 1 and not 2. In testing the game in a local server with 7 players, everything worked smoothly, both sequences worked as they should, spawning and tool giving worked as it should. So I hope to see you guys in the next episode where we'll focus on a little more on winners and survival type games. So I hope to see you guys then. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you need any help. Join the Discord. I appreciate any feedback and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you again. Have a great day.